Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're doing a deep dive into something that's been making headlines lately, big tech and ESG. More specifically, how these giants are dealing with their, well, massive energy consumption.
And it's only getting bigger, right?
Exactly.
Which is interesting because we tend to think of tech as this clean industry, almost virtual, But
Yeah.
when you think about data centers and AI,
All those servers running 24/7,
yeah, it paints a different picture. They use a ton of power.
a lot of power. And the numbers are really eye-opening. We saw reports that Microsoft, Alphabet, and Meta,
Right.
their energy use has jumped ridiculously in just a single year. We're talking 23%, 20%, even 39% respectively. It makes you wonder, can renewable energy even keep up with that kind of demand?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's a big one. Goldman Sachs, they actually predict data center power demand could increase by, get this, 160% by 2030.
Whoa.
Yeah. Think about what that means for the energy grid, resource availability. It's not just a tech issue, it's an infrastructure problem.
Okay, so this is where things get really interesting for anyone who follows ESG investing. Because these companies, they've made big promises about sustainability. And they've got investors, particularly those Article 8 and 9 funds, the ones that are all about sustainability, they're watching very closely to see if they deliver.
And then you have to factor in Scope 3 emissions, which most people don't even realize are a thing.
Skip 3.
Yeah, it's basically all the indirect emissions from a company's operations. So think manufacturing, shipping, even the energy you use browsing on your phone. All of that contributes to a company's Scope 3. And that's where a huge chunk of tech's environmental impact really lies.
So when we talk about a company like Apple being green, and then we see that their Scope 3 emissions make up something like 99% of their footprint, it
Exact.
makes you realize that whole image isn't so simple.
It's a lot more complex, and that's a major concern for ESG investors.
Because how do you measure something like the environmental impact of developing AI? Like, where do you even begin?
Right. It's really difficult to get those concrete numbers, and it's
Yeah.
hard to tell who's genuinely trying to make changes and who's.
Greenwashing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And it's not a small amount of money we're talking about here. There are hundreds of billions of dollars invested in ESG funds. So naturally, investors are demanding more transparency, especially when it comes to AI's energy consumption.
Absolutely. And that pressure is starting to change things. We're seeing some big investors like Nordea Asset Management, for instance, making AI energy use a core part of their discussions with these tech companies.
Wow, so it's getting serious.
Yeah, it's not just a box to tick anymore. It's a make or break issue.
So are these tech companies actually stepping up to the plate? Or are they just hoping this whole thing blows over?
Well, it's not like they're ignoring it. We're seeing a lot of investment in energy efficient data centers.
Oh, interesting. What does that even look like?
It's everything from using smarter cooling systems to optimizing servers for maximum efficiency. Those small tweaks here and there can actually add up to some pretty substantial energy savings.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's not just about using less energy, right? It's about where that energy is coming from.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about? A future powered by windmills and solar panels.
Yeah, renewable energy is a big part of the solution here. Many tech companies are putting billions with a B into solar and wind farms trying to offset that carbon footprint.
But is that enough to keep up with, that 160% projected increase in energy demand?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah,
Some companies are even looking into nuclear power, which is interesting.
definitely raises some eyebrows considering its history.
For sure. But look, it's not just about what companies are willing to do voluntarily. Governments are stepping in with stricter regulations. The EU has its Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, or SFDR for short.
And what's that all about?
Transparency. It's
Mm.
designed to make sure companies are actually backing up their sustainability claims with hard data. No more greenwashing.
All right, no more vague promises.
Yeah.
And what about here in the U.S.? So are we doing anything similar?
The SEC is working on climate rules that would require companies to disclose more about their environmental impact.
So the pressure's on. But going back to those ESG investors, the ones of those Article 8 and 9 funds, if these tech giants don't meet those sustainability standards, are there any real consequences? Or is this all just talk?
Oh, there are definitely consequences. These funds have very specific criteria, and if a company can't prove they're meeting them, they could get dropped from the fund. Imagine the PR hit, especially now that ESG investing is becoming more mainstream.
It'd be like getting a big fat F in sustainability, and everyone would know.
Exactly. And with trillions of dollars flowing into ESG investments, that's a risk a lot of companies aren't willing to take.
Especially not the big players. Which reminds me, we've been talking about big tech in general, but what about those magnificent seven we always hear about? How much influence do they actually have in these ESG funds?
Oh, they're major players. Microsoft, for instance, is the top holding in both Article 8 and 9 funds.
Wow, seriously.
Yeah, if they were to get dropped, it would send shockwaves through the entire market.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And it's not just Microsoft, right? What about Apple, Amazon, Alphabet?
They're all major players in the ESG landscape. What they do matters.
It really does feel like we're watching this kind of tug of war happening between, all this incredible technological progress.
It needs to impact.
Exactly. Like, can we have both?
Yeah, it's like the classic case of unintended consequences. We got so caught up in the potential of things like AI and big data that we kind of forgot to ask, hey, how much energy is this all going to take?
And now it's crunch time.
It is.
Because these tech giants, the decisions they make in the next couple of years, they're going to have huge ripple effects on, well, everything.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond just individual companies at this point. We're talking about systemic change. We need to rethink how we design, produce, use, and eventually dispose of technology, the whole life cycle.
So it's not just about, like, slapping a green label on a product and calling it a day.
Right. We need to start thinking about things like a circular economy, minimizing waste, using resources as efficiently as possible, thinking about products in terms of durability, repairability, and at the end of their life, how easy are they to recycle or repurpose? Those are the kinds of questions we should be asking.
It's about the long game, not just the quick win.
Exactly. And it requires a different approach collaboration, not just within the tech industry, but across governments, investors, and consumers. We all have a part to play.
So you're saying it's not enough to just point fingers at big tech. We all have a responsibility here.
100%. We need to be asking ourselves those tough questions too, like, do I really need the latest phone, or can mine last another year?
Wow, so our everyday choices actually do make a difference.
They do. Remember, as consumers, we have power. When we demand better, more sustainable options, companies pay attention.
That's a good reminder. So as we wrap up this deep dive into tech's energy dilemma, it seems like the big question mark is, can innovation actually outrun its own environmental impact? Or are we headed for a reckoning?
It's a debate that's going to continue, that's for sure. But I think the thing to remember is the choices we make today, tech companies, investors, even everyday consumers, are going to determine what that future looks like.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you with this. What if the biggest innovation of the next decade isn't some new gadget or app, but a fundamental shift toward a truly sustainable digital world?
Now, that would be something to see.
It would. All right, everyone, that's it for today. As always, thanks for listening. Keep asking those tough questions, and we'll catch you next time.